This episode is proudly supported by OpenTable.
Nearly 1/3 of diners are booking same day. So they're making those decisions on the spot. And 10% are making their bookings within just a few hours. And so it's why it's so important to have booking software like OpenTable, which allows your diners to discover you. And so when restaurants are on platforms like OpenTable, they're much more likely to be discovered. We help diners to connect to restaurants. Ultimately, having technology, using technology, helps you to reattach to those diners.
Experience the power of OpenTable. For an exclusive offer, visit restaurant.opentable.com.au/DITW. This episode of the Luminaries on Deep in the Weeds is proudly supported by Deputy, rostering and timesheets without the usual chaos.
Food is everything to me because it's the simplest, if you just have just the most beautiful sourdough bread and butter, that's a complete thing for me. A freshly shucked oyster, it's life, and it's so much fun to work with. Yeah, it's my life.
This is the Luminaries on the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. The art of service is multifaceted. It's not about carrying plates, about taking someone's order or pouring their wine. It's about managing every individual's perceptions of value from the moment they arrive to the moment they leave. There are some that have not only left a mark on the art of great hospitality, but continue to lead the way forward for those looking at it as a genuine career path. Sharon Romeo is the co-owner of Fino at Seppeltsfield and Fino Vino in Adelaide. Sharon, how are you?
Great after that introduction. Thank you. Thanks for having me on again. It's nice to be here.
Oh, it's great to talk to you always. You're one of the leading front of house professionals in Australia. What's it been like carving out a career in the front of house?
When I first kind of got into hospitality, I was a teenager, I was about 15 or 16, and initially I wanted to be a chef. But then I just I worked in the hospitality industry to pay for my university degree, and I fell in love with it. And I really love the adrenaline rush you get, from a really busy service. And it just kept me there. And I just yearned for that highly stressed few hours of power. Yeah, where you manage a team, you manage customers, you manage walk-ins, and you just try and have this kind of seamless type of service, which is always kind of has a bit of chaos to it. But yeah, I just fell in love with it, and I really enjoyed it.
What's the secret to managing your team and that customer expectation with so many variables?
There are so many variables, and I guess it's managing your time. Also, actually, you've got to have the right team. And for me, I lead by example. I'm no better than any of my team. So I roll up my hands. I always do service, carry plates, take orders. But you've got to kind of have you've got to create this sense of camaraderie and teamwork to start with, which has got to be full of respect for me. It always has been. And I think when you know that your team have got your back, and you always strive for excellence, and you strive to kind of, I don't know, there's always been a little bit of competition for me. So it's like, see how many people we can do tonight, see how many sales we can get, and kind of your team kind of work off you too, in a way, which is great fun. Managing guest expectations. Oh, look, I think it can get a bit tricky, to be honest. It depends on the guest. But for me, I never feel like I'm serving someone. I always have the attitude of looking after someone. And I guess if you have that kind of mentality too, you don't let things get to you. People come in a mood. People have their own shit they're going through that day. We don't know. We're just trying to make their day better, I guess, for a few hours and try and make a difference.
You delved into hospitality to pay for a university degree, and you mentioned that you wanted to be a chef. Tell us about that.
Well, I just, mum and dad, kind of working class, second generation Southern Italians. So dad had his own cabinet making business. Mum worked retail. Money was always tight for us, but I would be a teenager and cook home cooked meals, and it would be a beautiful 3 to 4 hour homemade ragu. Absolutely, it's all I knew. We slaughtered the pig every year. In winter, we made surgo in summer. So for me, my father's was so proud of his culture and heritage, and wanted us to learn as much as we could. So it's always been deeply ingrained in me, food, and very simple peasant food, being resourceful. And my mother was the best and still is the best host. It just comes very naturally to her. She is very generous, and she makes everyone feel so comfortable. So I guess it's in my DNA.
Do you have any stories of when you were young and the sort of feasts that your family had?
Look, to this day, our Christmas meal is homemade calabrese lasagna, where Mum makes the sauce. We hand make pasta, just really fine. We hand roll these little veal and pork meatballs, boiled egg, ham, mozzarella, pecorino. That's our Christmas meal, and it always was. But Mum and Dad didn't have much, when I was growing up, so it was always just very basic, but beautifully crafted and generously made food that was so tasty, but very rustic. And it was always probably from my mum and dad's region in Calabria, which is really simple food, which is also called cucina povera, which is, poor person's food.
You've won many accolades for your commitment to the front of house. Take us back to when you were young. What were some of the key moments when you started to learn your craft and learn the skills required?
Look, I never worked I worked at very busy bistros, not really many restaurants. I never worked at any pubs. But I don't think I never worked in a fine dining venue at all, a few upmarket, but I don't know. It's just, I always had this kind of attention to detail, making sure the table, I remember setting the table, and it was like the altar for me. It was really sacred, like everything had to be perfect. And for me, it was that kind of sense when someone walks through the door and they're walking into your home, and when they sit down at that table, like everything is just perfect. So I don't know. No one's ever really taught me that. I don't remember. I remember being thrown in the deep end of many busy venues, but I always put my touch on it, I guess, because I took it so seriously when I was younger, in my 20s. Yeah.
You've had an incredible owner-operator business relationship with David Swain for many decades. How did that begin?
David and I, we've been in business now for 16, going on 17 years. We met at the Star of Greece in, I think, the year 2000. We were just two like-minded people that really enjoyed working together. Now, we worked over 2 intense summers in Port Wollonga in South Australia. Like, the cafe was open 7 days, 7 nights in summer, from Boxing Day through to Australia Day. So they were really intense services, Anthony. Like, you didn't stop. But we just gelled, and we just had this like-minded idea of how we like to eat. And one day we should open a place, ha, ha, ha. And we did. But we opened a place that we wanted to eat at. And with that comes its own kind of business pains. Like, for example, you don't realise you're creating a niche market. Well, we didn't. We just wanted to serve what we wanted to eat and drink, obviously. And, not everyone understood what we were trying to achieve. They got there in the end.
Did you have to change anything or adapt to make sure that did work?
Yeah, totally. So the first time we opened Fino in Wollonga in 2006, we thought it'd be a really good idea to not have a menu and get people to trust us. And that was the worst thing we did, because people didn't, and people didn't really trust us. And and then, in hindsight, looking back, you've got to earn their trust. And when you do, And when you do earn your guest trust, they love you and they are loyal and, they support you for years. But it's just earning that trust. And that was one lesson I have learned is just in Italian we say piano piano. So just, easy does it. So it takes time. But it was really rewarding to go through that experience.
Do you have any fond memories from that time of that initial version of Fino?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know it was the first restaurant I ever opened, and honestly, I didn't think I was good enough to do it. I don't know, I just didn't have the faith in myself, which is really odd because I come across so confidently, but, there were the moments there I thought, I don't know exactly what I want to achieve or what exactly we're doing. Because you give something a go, but you don't know how it's going to unfold. You don't know how the customer base are going to take you. We opened a little 60-seater venue in Wollonga. Not many people even knew where Wollonga was. But what a community, and working in regions, there's nothing like it. The depth of relationships that you build, the relationships you build with the guest, the locals, the vignerons, the farmers, the producers, and they walk in and say, David, I've got these goose eggs. What can you do with them? Or here are my mandarins, or here's some eggplants. Here's, bringing a pig through the front door of the restaurant. It was beautiful. I miss those moments, to be honest.
It was at that time that you started to forge great relationships with the winemakers of the region as well and start to celebrate them. Tell us about the connections that you made there.
Well, at first, I upset a lot of the winemakers because my small wine list, which had under 50 wines, didn't really support the region. So, and my idea behind that was to select these eclectic, interesting wines from abroad and other places to excite the winemaker or the wine enthusiast, to give them a different experience, to take them on some journey, for a moment. And eventually they love that about Fino. And then, of course, yes, we created a whole like a wine wall of all local wines to support them and for people who are travelling into the region to try some alternative varieties and newer wine styles than the usual suspects.
What's it like putting together that wine list that works for a venue? You like to have really tight, sharp, specific menus. What does it take to pull those together?
For me and David, selecting the wines is really important that kind of match the kind of weight and style of the food. So I love writing a wine list. I'm in my happy place when I do that. I get carried away though, of course, because it doesn't make any sense to have these really bold, big reds because David has this lovely finesse with food. So it didn't make sense to have these really big, robust Barossa or McLaren Vale wines, but also to celebrate the new McLaren Vale and the progressive wine styles that we have in the regions. So for me, I'll always celebrate those, and I still do to this day.
What led to the move of Fino to the much bigger site at Seppeltsfield?
Well, we were invited by Warren Randall, the managing director. He kind of started planting the seed for about 3 years, in which we said, nah, mate, no, not going to happen. We both live in the Fleurieu Peninsula, You're in the Barossa Valley, that's so far away, and we've made all these connections, and our life is here. So it was really hard to kind of logistically think about the logistics of not only running 2 venues, but running 2 venues that are like 2 hours apart. It just seemed really odd to kind of consider that. But we were invited to be the destination restaurant of the redevelopment of Seppeltsfield, which reopened in 2014. They have never, I think it was established in 1850 or 1891, forgive me for those that know when it was. We're the only dining space they've ever had. It's pretty amazing. And sitting here now, I'm sitting in the original 1900s bottling hall that is just absolutely magnificent. And I feel really proud and honoured that we had the opportunity to open a venue. And it's amazing.
What were the thoughts behind the menu and the offering there, given the great history? Was there an obligation to be part of that?
Well, it's part of our ethos as a regional restaurant to be a part, to immerse yourself in the region that you're in. So, no, it wasn't hard at all to think about that. It was just finding new producers, new farmers, new vignerons, new stories to tell. Yeah, so it was really, really easy. We wanted to have a point of difference to Fino Willunga. So Fino Willunga was all about this really small menu and all about sharing and it was a very personal experience because David and I worked pretty much every shift. So David touched most of the dishes and all the food and I served all the guests. So having that and then coming to this massive place where we have 4 dining areas. It seats over 140 people. It was really hard for me, actually, Anthony, to get my head around the masses of tourists or travellers that didn't actually know about Fino and didn't actually want to know about Fino. They were in the Barossa, yeah? They were in the Barossa. They didn't care. They weren't there to dine. I mean, they were. Some did dine, but they were there for the Barossan experience. And as a regional restaurant, absolutely, we delivered from day one, and we still do. But it was a different. I struggled from coming from such a personable, intimate venue to something that was 3.5 times the size, and with different expectations from guests.
How did you get over that sort of mental hurdle and operations hurdle to make it such a success?
I just had to get over the fact that they didn't care about my story or know it and just deliver and tell a new story, but that wasn't so personable, yeah? Because I'm sharing my home. I'm in Seppeltsfield's home. So, I just had to let that personal stuff go. Yeah, you do it it just took me a few years, but not long. I'm really there now.
This episode of the Luminaries on Deep in the Weeds is proudly supported by Deputy, helping managers and staff do their best work.
Hospitality is all about the connection. A business starts with passion, but gets bogged down with all the complexities that come with life, society, and rules. If you can simplify this mundane, then people can be happy and they can thrive. And when you have happy staff members and happy managers, your customers will sense it. They'll be happy. And you create that connection. That connection is hospitality is about.
For more information, go to deputy.com. Well, you also have Fino Vino in Adelaide. Tell us a bit about that venue and how different it is to the large offering out at Seppeltsfield.
I feel like we've come in full circle because David and I are running it again. It's a really personable venue and it reminds me of Fino Willunga, just 16 years old, 16 years newer. So it is, we always wanted another venue and I suppose we've done regions. So we did the Fleurieu Peninsula and now the Barossa Valley, very established venues we have. Well, Fino Willunga was, Fino Seppeltsfield is. We just wanted something new. We wanted this convivial kind of community vibe, restaurant and bar, somewhere that you could just come and have a drink, have a nibble, not necessarily eat. So it was kind of a new Fino, but an old Fino in a way. So I suppose the venues that we've created are very, very warm and welcoming, and that's really, really important to me. And regional restaurants have that, You feel welcome when you're in a place, in a region. And I wanted to create that same ethos and in the city, which we have.
Tell me about the local producers that you get to tell the stories of in regional South Australia.
Well, I'll talk about who we currently work with in the Barossa, but they are, obviously we don't have any ocean, so we use Gazander oysters, we use Port Lincoln mussels, Kinkawinka mussels, we use Kin Southern Bluefin tuna, From the Galway, we use Tom Robinson's Galway Pippies, Mulloway. We're using beautiful, freshly farmed barramundi from Robarra in the southeast. We work closely with Gumshire Pork, which is a heritage pork producer. The Angus family in Hunt Vale lamb is the most stunning lamb. We only get a full lamb, one whole lamb every week, and so we just use portions of that. So that's how they deliver. So it's not cuts of. We use local vegetables that are grown, wonderful orchards, pistachios and walnuts that are grown here. We make our own bread. We use Lauki flour and small world flour. So look, the story is just so beautifully interwoven into the region. What we can't source from the Barossa, we source from South Australia.
How much has the industry changed? You've had Fino for 16 years in different iterations, but has it changed a lot in the last 2 decades?
Yeah, I kind of felt a bit misunderstood with Fino Willunga. Yeah, there were moments when no one walked through the door and you're thinking, what have we done so wrong? You know, you question yourself. And I wonder if we were ahead of our time or what we're trying to do. But all we were trying to do was serve really simple, beautifully crafted food. Like it wasn't fancy. It was maybe a bit too simple for people. I don't know. I just felt a little bit misunderstood. I feel like it's a wonderful dining scene in South Australia right now. Like, I feel like we've come really far. And yeah, it's just been tough since COVID, I have to be honest. I suppose I feel like we've progressed in the last 16 years, absolutely. Look, more locals support you. More South Australians are going out. But I think part of our business does appeal to people that live in the eastern states. And it hurts. It's been hurting a lot since the borders have been closed.
Are there opportunities that have emerged that you think will come to fruition moving forward, given the sort of adversity that you've been through?
Yeah, I still think we're finding our feet there with Fino Vino in the city, only because it's still quite a new venue. We opened at the end of 2019. So I would love to see the opportunities of that city venue really flourishing, but we are located right in the CBD around lots of corporate businesses, so it's been pretty quiet in that area. So I would love to see more opportunities arise for the city venue. And in the Barossa, it's just when those borders open, it's just going to come back to life. Yeah, I'm waiting for that.
Well, staffing is a big issue at the moment. What would you say to those that might be contemplating a career in hospitality?
Come. I love it. It's the most amazing industry that I've been in. It is not for everybody. It is hard work physically, but it's so rewarding. Like, you get to work with food and beverage and cocktails and craft beers, and you get to meet all these different types of people. And I think it's a really important skill to have. And, you know, I've had so many students that have, you know, worked to support themselves, but it gives you such valuable skills to work in a team, to learn how to communicate, to learn about leadership, and to learn to be efficient and use your time well. So, yeah, I'm a champion for the industry still.
Well, you've been very successful over your career. What sort of business advice would you have for those perhaps looking to start their own business or getting out of the adversity that they've been in?
Look, I think you really need to do a business plan. David and I never did one when we first opened Fino Willunga. So I've learned about that. I think you just need to see what audience you're targeting, if you're going to cook for the community, the masses, what you want to achieve. But, you know, I was always given some advice a long time ago, and someone said to me, you can't be everything to everybody. Just be who you are and do it really, really well. And that's the same advice I would give to others.
What's a good night in a restaurant for you?
To be full. A good night is a seamless service, 2 sittings, where I get to touch every single table, and the vibe is just magical. Look, a good night for me is, most nights are good for me when I do service. As long as there's this great atmosphere, everyone's kind of being guided by you too, and they're excited to be there. I guess we work. I think the guests' personalities really rub off me too. You want people to have a good time. That's why they go out. And my aim is to always show them a good time and always help them spend their money well.
You mentioned that you'd love to touch every table at some sort of time in the evening. To tell us about that ethos and why it's so important.
Because people are walking through the door of my home. It's my home. And I really believe that I would like to tell them our genuine story in any way I can. Not a boring story. It could be just saying hello, telling them about a producer, talking about a wine or a sherry, That's really, really important, because I think we've created such a personable brand. And it's really genuine and authentic. And, I am really proud of what we do every day.
Your form of hospitality has changed and touched on so many people's lives as diners, but how has hospitality changed your life?
How has it changed my life? That's a hard question, because it's been my life. I haven't known anything else. But what I do know is that I absolutely love what I do, and I find it extremely rewarding to look after people, but also to make a difference to the people that I employ. That is so rewarding, to make a difference to them, to show them or mentor them through their life in some way is amazing.
You spoke earlier about cooking for your family when you were young and potentially maybe becoming a chef, but what does food mean to you?
Oh, food is everything to me, because it's the simplest, if you just have just the most beautiful sourdough bread and butter, that's a complete thing for me. A freshly shucked oyster, it's life, and it's so much fun to work with. And it can be creative, and it's good for your soul, and it's my life.
You mentioned that it still has been challenging, and you'd like to see borders open and see the Barossa booming again. What do you think the next couple of years look like for hospitality?
Yeah, I've been asking myself the same question. I feel like I think the hospitality industry has been deeply affected by the state closures, capacity restrictions. We've had to pivot so many ways. We've had to do double sittings. Sorry, I'm trying to find the most basic word. Social distancing, all those things that you just don't, they're not normal to us, wearing face masks. Someone wrote a complaint about me because I didn't take I said something, I thought it was quite funny, but I was taken the wrong way. It's all about the face mask. People are taking us the wrong way. Look, and it's because looking after a table is so personable, yeah? And you've just taken this really important element of reading people away. I think we have a really massive skill shortage that needs to be addressed. And I think guest expectations, I don't know if guests are going to understand that we don't have the resources like we used to. It's hard to get staff out. It's hard to hire staff right now. I feel like the hospitality industry is extremely resilient, and we are extremely creative. But boy, it's been hard on us, And what's been really difficult is all of this stuff is going on as a business owner, but as a front of house person, I've got to come out the floor and I've got to put a smile on my dial. And I've got to just pretend for a few hours that life's okay. It's been really tough. That's been one of the hardest things for me this last 2 years. All these unknowns, and you can see that there's been a decline in consumer confidence. You can see that customers are there's fear. There's a lot of the unknown. You're being watched to see if you're sanitizing properly. All these things. It's like, it's a lot of pressure on us. But I feel like we will rise above this. And I think we just, for us, it's, this whole industry too is about cash flow. You don't have cash flow, you can't pay your staff, you can't pay your producers. So we just we just need those borders to open. We need consumer confidence to increase and support small business and eat out.
How do you motivate your team to get the best out of them in these circumstances and really flourish on the floor?
Well, I've got to be positive in front of them. And that positivity, I've got to be positive for myself, to be honest. But when you've got that positivity and you just get them amped up, and it rubs off on them, absolutely. And I always acknowledge what a great job they've done and believe in positive reinforcement, absolutely, always. It's really important.
There'll come a time when the borders are open and everyone is busy. What are you most looking forward to?
Being busy. I just want to see a light at the end of the tunnel. We've been waiting for these borders to open. We've been living in this bubble in SA, and I just feel like I just want to see people travelling again. I really do. And I would like to travel again. But once the borders open, it will be a boost for the economy and for everyone, staff, business owners, producers, winemakers, everything. It has a flow-on effect.
You've been in the industry for quite some time, and there is a skills shortage, as you mentioned. You mentioned it is your entire life. What is it that you love about what you do and what people could get out of this industry?
I love making a difference to someone's experience, and I love making a difference to the people that I employ. And I always want to know more. I always want to be the best I can be. And I love telling stories because that's what front of house are. We're storytellers. And it's making a difference to the people I look after and the people I employ.
Well, Sharon, you've made a massive impact on so many people and many people to come as well. We've loved having you on the Luminaries today to hear a bit of your story. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, Huck. Thanks for having me.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.